All right. Hi, everybody. Let me just figure out some tech stuff quickly, and we will get started. Let me just make sure that we are working. Okay, yes, I think we are live. Hi, Namira. Can you see the video? You should see a slide. Can you see that? Or can you hear me? All right, just if you guys can type into the chat box. All right, I'm not sure that we are. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Yay. Okay, good. This is a new webinar platform. And I love this because it sits on my site, which is just so cool. So I can keep it as private or public as I want. So if you can just type into the box and just tell me what your name is and where you are. I know a lot of people will be in Dallas, and I love um, the little faces that this chat thing gives you. And just a couple of tech tips. If you want to keep the chat box out, on the top right corner, there is like two rectangles, kind of one on top of another, and that will pop out the chat box or let it or bring it back into the site. So cool. So go to introduce yourself. I am going to go ahead and start, and then I will check back over onto the chat box so I can see who we have with us. All right. So, welcome everybody. Let me just give you a quick rundown of what we're going to do. So first, I'm going to share my story with you and why I do what I do, and why I hope you'll listen to me, or why you should listen to me, and when it comes to dating and relationships. And then we're going to jump into the three most common mistakes that I see smart, career-oriented, ambitious, whatever you want to call it, women make. And then 3 steps to get into the relationship you desire. And then next steps if you want to dig a little deeper into what I'm talking about. So let's go, whoopsies, excuse me. Let's go right in. All right, so my name is Veronica. I know that there are some familiar faces on the call today, and I know there's some new folks. So I'm so happy to have both. So for those of you who don't know me, I'll just give you my story. So ever since I was pretty much 12 years old, knew, what boys were, I've been a chronic soulmate seeker. I've never been the type where I wanted a one-night stand or something casual, or just friends with benefits, anything like that. I had a much older sister who got married fairly young. She met her husband of now over 10 years at a pretty young age. And that's what I had intended to do as well. The problem was that I was also chronically single. And I got to a point where I actually kind of became desperate for a relationship. A lot of my friends began coupling off, and I couldn't figure out why I wasn't able to get into a relationship like all my friends had. And that desperation led to a lack of confidence and a lack of respect for myself. And looking back, I now know that that attracted men who um, it like attracts like. So it attracted men who also maybe didn't have a lot of confidence, didn't respect themselves, and in turn me. And so I ended up dating a lot of, not nice guys who weren't emotionally, who are emotionally unavailable, what have you. And this was pretty much a pattern for me for most of my 20s. And then I met my dream guy. So this guy actually goes all the way back to college, and we met very early on, I think first semester of freshman year. And we had an amazing friendship. He was really my best friend. He was the person that I called when I was upset or sad about one of the guys that, that wasn't emotionally available for me. And our relationship was completely platonic until he confessed his love for me. Now that's a whole other story in itself, which I'm not going to get into. But the long and short story is that we started dating and it was an amazing relationship, but then I broke up with him. And of course, now I know that I broke up with him because I finally had someone who was treating me the way I wanted to be treated, but I wasn't at that point in my life treating myself that way yet. And so therefore I couldn't let anybody in. I had these blocks. I had horrible body image issues. I was always trying to lose 5 more pounds, and I certainly was not giving myself the self-care that I needed. So I broke up with him, and I basically buried myself in my job. I hid myself behind my career, and I finally had a job where I was working probably close to 100 hours a week. It was an insane job. I was not eating healthy. I was not exercising. I was not taking any care of myself. I was not sleeping. And I left that job, and I thought it would just take a couple of days for me to recover and then move on. But it took me weeks and really probably months to start feeling better again. I was just physically drained and exhausted and depleted. And at the time, I had some good friends of mine that were vegan. And I'm not a vegan now, and I don't advocate veganism. But one thing that I did admire was I admired their relationship to food and how they really cared about eating food because it made them feel good and made their skin glow, and not just as a way to count calories and to lose weight, which was just a really way that I wasn't treating myself right and how I was attracting those types of guys. So I started treating myself better. I started just eating healthy for the sake of eating healthy and taking care of myself, exercising for just moving my body and not to burn calories. And it wasn't that long that I was treating myself the way I wanted to be treated that I could finally meet someone who was able to treat me that way now. So this is Stevie. We've been dating for 2.5 years now. We met in actually a bar of all places in Washington, D.C., and now we live in Dallas, Texas. And we could not be happier. We couldn't be more in love and more caring of each other. So that's my story. And it's not just me that I've been able to, look past, see what was blocking me and what helped me move forward. But I've also been able to help a lot of women to move forward in their relationships. So this is my client, Courtney. So I'll just read it. Veronica says, Veronica helped me to date myself. So that's one thing I actually do with my clients, is help them date themselves, and when doing that, which I realized was such an important step for me to get back into the dating scene. During one of the dates, I realized a big aha moment. I'd been playing the victim card, which kept me out of the dating scene for 2 years. I've been so much happier, and I put way less stress on myself and started putting myself first. So that's awesome. And then my other client, Lauren, I finally had the courage to ask for what I needed with the guy I was seeing. I'm usually frustrated dating men and not being on the same page as them. He was coming to visit again, and I said, if you're looking for just one thing, I'm not your girl, because I'm looking for more than hookups in my life. It felt good to open up the conversation, and it turns out he felt the same way. I'm still exploring where this relationship will go, but this feels so good for me right now. All right. Yeah, so, whoops. So those are a couple of my clients and just how I've been able to help them get over their blocks, as well as just me doing some reflection over my own dating and self-care history of my own blocks and getting into the relationship that I desired and deserved. So I'm just going to take a moment here to pause. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the box. And I saw someone commented on the meetup event. So just give me 1 second so I can reply and see how we are doing. Cool. Awesome. So welcome, Melissa and Jennifer. And then I think Namira. And then I think someone is trying to get on. So just give me 1 second and I will, let's see. All right. All right. So moving on to the 3 mistakes that I know I certainly made in my dating story, and that I think a lot of other women also make. So the first mistake is that we're just a little bit judgy. So we're smart, we're ambitious, we know what we want, and we don't have to apologize for that. And I'm not suggesting that we do. But just notice if you've ever said something like, this city has this type of guys, or everyone I go out with is so boring, or no one's on my intellectual level, or whatever the judgment is, just whether it's a blanket statement about like a certain dating website or a city, or even a specific guy that you've gone on a date with. And here's the problem with judging. When you judge, you actually block love from getting in. So any potential that there is in a relationship with a certain person, or a positive experience in a city or a dating website, you block anything good from happening. And that's because when you judge something, it is impossible to let it in any real way. And that's because you cannot love something until you accept it. So let me kind of tell you what that means. So if you're starting at a point where you don't accept something, then you definitely cannot love it. And I'm not, and you know, I will talk about like superficial things like job and career. I'm not really necessarily talking about that. I'm just saying that if we're judging people, then you're not creating a space for love to happen. And so what do you do instead of judging? You discern. So let me tell you the difference between judging and discerning. Judging is passing a judgment based on character. So they're so boring, they're so mean, they're so dumb. Whatever you say about the guys that you go out with, you want to practice discernment. And when you practice discernment, you release your need to be understood or to understand. And so therefore, you put yourself in a place where you could potentially accept something and then therefore potentially love it. So do you see how when you automatically judge something or a person or a city or whatever, you're not even allowing yourself to have that potential, to have that possibility. Now, I'm not saying that every single person you go out with, you'll be compatible with. It's just allowing you the possibility of meeting that person. So discerning is passing a judgment of yes versus no. So you can meet some guy and maybe he has some characteristic, and instead of just saying, oh, he's so this, just say, you know what, that's not for me, or that is for me. And then you'll be able to just allow someone to be the person that they are, and then you can just decide, like, is this something for me, or is this something not, and keep the possibility there, rather than just waste your time and go out with these men where there's no actual possibility, because you're essentially writing your own, I don't want to use the word fate or destiny, but for lack of a better word, you're basically writing your own fortune, your own future. So practice discernment instead of judgment. All right. And now the next mistake that I see a lot of smart women make, and I love talking about this, and I know there might be some men on this call, and I do work with men, And this actually does apply to men as well, but usually in the exact opposite way that I'm going to describe this. And I will just go ahead and say that this issue of not balancing masculine and feminine energies can be an entire webinar in itself. So we're not going to dig very deep. This is going to be a very bird's eye view of balancing masculine and feminine energies, and you know, how a lot of times smart, ambitious women actually end up emasculating the men that they go out with. So as you heard from my story, I hid behind my career for a long time because, well, I think there was a lot of reasons. One, because I was afraid to face the fact that I was single when I didn't want to be single. But another one was because I didn't know how to be feminine. And it wasn't even that I didn't know how to be feminine. It was almost I rejected femininity in itself, because in our society, there's really two archetypes of femininity that are generally accepted. And so the two archetypes are being the nurturer, so like the mother, or being the maiden, the like the Disney princesses or whatever. And I couldn't help but think, but if I'm, you know, being feminine, then I'm accepting gender roles from the 1950s, and I was not interested in that. I don't think I will ever be interested in that. And because I didn't know there was any other way to be feminine, I just rejected femininity outright and hid behind masculine energy, which is very goal-oriented, career-oriented, like results, you know, end product oriented. And that's where I hung out for a really long time. One thing that I want to make really clear, though, is that this is not about male and female. So masculine and feminine energies go beyond what our sex is. Both males and females need to have a balance of masculine and feminine energies. So we all know, you guys have, or you have met the guys that are super into their masculine energies and they just walk around huffing everywhere and they're not in touch with feminine at all. And then we also can think of a few guys that we know that are pretty effeminate. So both men and women need balanced feminine and masculine energies. But when both parties in a relationship, both male and female, and I'm just talking from the heterosexual standpoint, I just want to say, but if you are interested in the same sex, the same thing applies. It's nothing different. So anyways, so if both parties are too masculine or too feminine, then they're going to be like magnets. Like they're going to be at like the same pole. They're not going to go together. And so you have to have some sort of balance. And so if, as me, an ambitious, career, competitive oriented type of person, I wasn't allowing somebody in because I wasn't allowing a man to fully support me. And I don't mean financially, and I don't mean quitting your job and being a homemaker. I just mean emotionally being supportive. And so the one thing I just want to say, if you have a history of things being really hot and heavy at first, and then things fall apart after a month or two, you will definitely want to look into how your masculine and feminine energies are doing. And this is why this is important. Well, there's a lot of reasons why this is important, but one of the reasons that I think this is super important is because if you are a female and totally unbalanced and you're in your masculine energy all the time and you don't let another male in to support you in any way, you are denying him the possibility of being happy in the relationship. Because when you are in a relationship with someone that you really care about, and they want to do things for you because it makes you happy, but because they care about you, by making you happy, it also makes them happy. So if you are not allowing them to give you anything, even if it's just a compliment, then you are essentially denying them happiness in a relationship, and they're not going to want to stick around because, and they don't know exactly what it is, and you may not know exactly what it is either, but that's really what's happening. So what to do instead? Allow your partner to do something for you. Allow your partner to cook you dinner. Allow your partner to give you a compliment. Allow your partner to give you advice or do you a favor, whatever it is. And then explore ways to be in your own version of femininity. So one really great place to look into is looking at all of the Greek and Roman goddesses. They were certainly not the archetype of nurture or maiden that we think of when we think of femininity. So this is a time to be creative, explore. And again, this could be a whole workshop in itself, and we're not going to do that now, just for the matter of time and just staying somewhat focused. But definitely something to think about and to begin to explore for yourself. And I might actually do a workshop on this topic because I think it's huge, especially for career-oriented women. All right, so moving on, and I don't have the chat box in front of me. So when I finish this third point, I will go back, look at the questions, and then move on to the 3 steps. All right, so the final mistake that I see, and I have to be honest, I don't see this necessarily with just smart women. I think this is a mistake that a lot of us make, but I just wanted to say it because it's so important and it's so common. And that is that we have no boundaries, especially early on in a relationship. We're just trying to quote unquote win the dating game. So we do things that go against our gut or what we believe to seek others' love and approval. So in turn, we're not respecting our boundaries. So what does this look like? This can look like saying yes when you mean no, no when you mean yes, not owning your opinion, playing down your successes because you don't want to make the guy feel bad because maybe he hasn't had the same level of success you've had. Let's see. I mean, of course, lying goes without saying, obviously lying, but just not being completely honest with the other person that you're on a date with. It's how you win the dating game for sure, but it's not how you get into a long-term relationship, because eventually those boundaries are going to come up and your partner is basically going to be like, WTF, I didn't know you were this or you thought that. And I actually strongly believe that most divorces and breakups have roots in lack of boundaries. So that's, I'll just say that. So you might as well just go ahead and start practicing your boundaries now. And I think a lot of women are scared to do this because they're afraid that it will repel and push away men. And the truth is that it will repel men. But the good news is that this is good news, because that means you don't have to. You can respect and honor your boundaries, and literally just imagine yourself, you're standing in the sand and you're just drawing these lines are. You don't have to apologize for it. You don't have to make excuses for it. You can just say, nope, this is me. This is what I believe. And there will be men who will be like, cool, this is awesome. Yeah, I want more of this. And there will be men who's like, this is not for me. I'm not down with this. And they're just going to filter themselves out. And this is great news because that means you don't have to do it. You don't have to waste your time or your energy or your emotions over someone who's not interested in respecting the boundaries that you have. Let's see. Yeah, so what to do instead? Say yes when you mean yes and say no when you mean no. Own your opinions, own what you believe. And another thing I want to say, I saw a statistic that there are 50 million single men in the United States. So, and I hear a lot of times women go online and they're online dating and they just feel overwhelmed because there's so many people that they could potentially go on dates with. And I totally hear that, and it's totally overwhelming. So practicing boundaries is going to help you kind of eliminate some of the people that you know won't be good for you. So this makes your life a whole lot easier. And the last thing I want to say about this, when you're so a couple things. One, with your boundaries, is sometimes you don't actually know what your boundaries are until you get into a relationship. So allow yourself to just be like, oh, I actually didn't like that, or that didn't really work for me. And so know that you're not going to know all of your boundaries now. The other thing I want to say about boundaries is a lot of times boundaries become a little bit superficial. Like, I need someone who makes this much money or has this type of job or went to this school or lives in this type of house or whatever it is. And I'm not saying those things aren't something to consider, but oftentimes they're not really helpful in creating authentic boundaries that actually will help us lead to the right potential partners, because this kind of gets into the whole area of judgment, which was the first mistake, which was creating or having these opinions or judgments about people based on character rather than just yes or no. So, look into your boundaries and, see if you can, and keep boundaries that are more related to ideas and values and less about, more demographics, that type of stuff. Whew. All right. So that was the first part. I'm going to hop back over to make sure that Nancy found the link. Cool. All right. So I don't see any questions coming in. If you've got questions, type them in. Otherwise, write them down, and then I'll take questions at the end. And so now definitely grab your paper and pen or your workbook if you were able to print it out, because we're going to go into 3 steps to get into the relationship that you want. And these are the exact 3 steps that I actually take my clients through. So super cool stuff. And the 3 steps are create space, create presence, and create love. So the truth is, I spend anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks in each area when I work with clients on creating space, creating presence, and creating love. And by far, the step that takes the longest is creating presence. Because once you've created presence, then creating love just kind of happens naturally. Because again, you are attracting what you put out into the universe, and you're getting that back. So we're going to do just one exercise for each of the 3 stages. And the first one is creating space. So creating space is all about creating space both physically and mentally. So I actually have clients, their first assignment when they work with me is clean up their space. And if you're on my Date Yourself email list, you know that that's the first thing that I have people do. And you know that it has amazing effects. Just cleaning out that drawer or your car or whatever it is just has amazing effects on the mind. And it's also about, just making sure you're paid up with bills and you don't owe any money, just basically clearing your conscience. And so the third part about creating your space is creating mental and energetic space. And the best way to do that is through forgiveness. All right. Sorry, I just went back and forth from the slides for a second. All right. So creating space for someone new requires forgiveness. So if you've had a hard time letting somebody fully come in and love you and support you, this could be another reason why, that there's someone else in your head that's not allowing space for a new person. So all right. This is not, there we go. Sorry, I was not syncing up for a second. So I'm talking about exes. I'm talking about parents you have to forgive if you have any issues with them. Even all of those nameless first dates that didn't go anywhere and that make you think you have just bad luck dating, you have to forgive all those people too. And you can't forget forgiving yourself either. Forgiving yourself is just as important, if not more important. And forgiving is just about getting your power back. It's not condoning, it's not making it okay, it's not brushing it under the rug. And I'm talking about everything from just believing that you are a victim of bad luck in dating to even situations of abuse. So everything in between, you've got to forgive. And the best example I know, and it might be cliche to bring up Oprah, but I'm going to do it. So Oprah is one of the most successful women in the world. Whether you like her or not, you can't deny that she is uber successful. But she was not born with a silver spoon in her mouth, and really, she was actually a victim of incest. And it's certainly a part of her story. So if you follow her shows or have been, following her for a while, you probably know her story. And while it's a part of her, she's not victim to it. Her perpetrators or her abusers do not have power over her anymore. She, in some way, and I don't know exactly what she did, but there was some sort of forgiveness and release work that she had to do. Because otherwise, you're just going to play the victim card, and you're going to be like my client Courtney, who was hiding behind not dating, or like me, how I was hiding behind, I was chronically single, so I was hiding behind my career, playing the victim card. Playing the victim card it's a block. It's not going to give, you're never going to be able to get into the relationship that you want to get in as long as you haven't forgiven that person. And so it's just about releasing whoever is in your space, including old versions of yourself. So like your 20-something self, your self that stayed in a relationship that shouldn't have, whatever it is, you're just getting your emotional and energetic space back. And I have a really great meditation you can do to help you begin this process. Now, again, with my clients, we go through a whole long exercise that we're not going to have time to do today. But I do have a way for you to get a free copy of my forgiveness meditation that will help you begin to release some of that space. So just stick around to the end of the webinar, and I will share how you can get that. All right, so once we've started to create a little bit of space, we realize that we've got some extra room, and so we can allow now time for some presence. We're creating presence. So when we're in present time and you can fully see what's around you and what's in front of you, what's behind you, you can start to see some of your blocks. And maybe from some of what I've already said, you might have been able to relate to some of that. Like maybe the forgiveness were really related to, or maybe the masculine and feminine, or judging, or whatever it is. Maybe some of those started to resonate with you. Well, those are just blocks. So those are just some blocks coming up that you realize, oh yeah, like I totally do that. And that's kind of the work. And so we're going to do an exercise now to release those blocks. So grab a pen and paper, and if you've got your workbook, open up your workbook and write down for me 5 ways you liked your parents' relationship and 5 ways you did not like your parents' relationship. And I know there's repeats on the call. So if you've done this exercise and you might be rolling your eyes like, oh, she does this every time. Well, let me tell you, I've done this exercise probably a dozen times, and every time I do it, I find something new. And I have found so many things that have allowed me to nip things in the bud, because I see that I'm doing one of 2 things, and I think you'll see that you're doing one of 2 things as well. You're either unconsciously recreating patterns that your parents did, or you are acting in reaction to something that your parents did. So keep writing what your parents did, about your parents' relationship, things you liked, things you did not like, and then just make a decision. Did you generally like your parents' relationship, or did you generally not like your parents' relationship? All right. And then, whoops. All right, what's going on? All right. I'm going to share okay, I think I have to like click or something. Why isn't it coming up? All right, I think I'm gonna have to read this out loud. For some reason my slides aren't working, so just give me 1 second to pull it up. But as you're writing, I'm gonna share just some things that might have come up, and I'll just give you some insight into why something may be happening for you in your dating patterns. So if you feel like your parents weren't there for you, then you might be in survival mode. And so then you don't let men fully in to support you. So this kind of relates to the feminine and masculine energies. When you mostly admire your parents' relationship, you might seek out being perfect yourself, or seek perfection in who you want in your life. And that keeps you from dating or connecting with men that could be right. And that's because you are holding them to an impossible standard. They cannot be perfect, and so you've got to lower down your parents' pedestal to to help let somebody else in. When you feel like the black sheep in the family, often you believe that you are too different or too much for a man to handle. So you might be repelling men that way. If your mom wasn't very present with you or didn't make you feel special, you might seek that in men, and often pick the wrong ones just because you receive some sort of presence and attention. And often that attention is negative. Or maybe you weren't that close to your dad and he was emotionally unavailable, and now you might be attracting emotionally unavailable men as well. If you're very close to your mother, you might be actually the nurture archetype, which is totally fine, but you might actually be mothering men rather than being their lover, which could be turning them off. So this exercise is so incredible, and I do this. I've done this exercise numerous times, as I've said, and I actually recently did this exercise, and I found, and I'm not going to go into the details of it. I won't do that in a public class, but with my clients or a paid class, then that's different. But essentially, I found a pattern that my mom was doing, and even though my worst nightmare is to become my mother, I actually found myself doing the same thing she was doing. It was a completely different way, and so I would have never have picked it up unless I had done this exercise. And I completely called myself out on it. And I had a really nice conversation with Stevie, and it was actually one of the best and deepest conversations we've ever had. And now that I know that that's a pattern for me that comes naturally because that's what I've seen, I'm able to start recreating or creating new experiences for myself and for my relationship so that I don't fall into the same trap as my parents, who had a pretty nasty divorce, which I certainly don't want for myself. All right, so then the third stage is create love. And my favorite motto is date for fun, not to find the one. So if you date to find the one, you are putting, whatever you want to call it, the one, your soulmate, your beloved, whatever it is, you're putting them on such a pedestal of every time you meet someone, you're like, oh, is this the one? Is this my soulmate? And no one can ever have that level of perfection. And so you're already setting yourself up for failure. So I always start with date for fun, not to find the one. And once you work through some of these blocks that you have, and you might be figuring out and realizing some blocks that you've had that you don't know, you'll see how that once you can start creating new patterns for yourself, creating love just becomes easy because you're attracting men who are going to treat you the way you're treating yourself and the way you want to be treated. So in your workbook, or grab a pen and paper, write down all the dating rules that you follow. I think this is a super fun exercise to do because when you think about it, it's really ridiculous, all the dating rules. Like, you can't text before 3 days, or there's rules about when you're allowed to have sex, or when you have to go on drink dates and then you can go on a dinner date, or like how long you have to date until you can go out on a Saturday night, and what does that mean, and when can you plan something in advance, and when do you meet the parents. So whatever it is, just write down all of the rules that you have, and just take a few minutes to do that, and then just ask yourself, like, is this working? Does this work for me? And if it does, then you know what, then great. I'm really happy for you. But my guess is that it's probably not working for you. And here's the thing about the dating rules. If you want to win the dating game, then yeah, probably playing the dating rules, yeah, it's probably going to work, and you'll win. But if you want to win at, and I don't like to call it a game, but just for the comparison for right now, if you want to win the game of love or long-term relationship, whatever it is you're seeking, playing games doesn't do you any bit of good, because playing games doesn't allow you to be vulnerable. And at some point, you have to be vulnerable in a relationship in order to let love in. But of course, once we've got to the stage, creating love is much easier once you've created space and created presence. So after you write down your dating rules that you follow, just take a moment and close your eyes and just really ask yourself, do these dating rules work for you? Is what you're doing right now to find the relationship that you want, is that working for you? And then on a scale of 10, a scale of 1 to 10, just pick the first number that comes to mind and tell me um, how willing are you to let go of your own expectations and beliefs about dating and relationships in order to allow limitless possibilities to happen. So what would happen if you release the need to judge, if you release the need to not let somebody in, if you released the needs to play all these dating games, if you were able to finally start seeing some patterns that you were doing because of your parents' relationship or maybe an older sibling's relationship. And imagine being able to meet the love of your life in line at the coffee shop or on a plane or just walking down the street. And imagine talking to a man feeling grounded and at ease and natural. And then imagine easily letting go of the guys you liked but vanished without second guessing or overthinking why that happened, and picking up on red flags right away, letting go of the guys that aren't right for you, letting go of your ex for good. And imagine dating a guy you like and being able to be yourself and express what you need and what you want from him. And so what I do is I help women and some men treat themselves the way they want to be treated so they can have the relationship they desire and really the relationship that they deserve. So I'm just curious now, like, where are you now when you're dating? Are you feeling stuck? Do you um, do you know what your best next action steps for you based on the exercises that you've done tonight and seeing some patterns maybe come up in some blocks that you have? And where are your energy leaks? Where are you getting drained and frustrated and disappointed on? Can you get them plugged up? And if any of these questions relate to you, or if you're asking yourselves these very questions, then then please go to either the website that is on this slide, or if you scroll below the video, everyone who is on, well, not everyone, but I have a limited number of slots available to chat with you for half an hour, totally free, to figure out where your blocks are, where you're getting stuck, why you're repeating the same things over and over again, and how to create new experiences for yourself. So go ahead and schedule yourself. It just goes right into my calendar. It's super simple and easy. And if you schedule yourself before the end of tonight, then I will also give you that forgiveness meditation that I told you about earlier, so you can start creating some space for other people in your energetic and emotional space. So I know 30 minutes doesn't seem that long, but in 30 minutes, I have really fine-tuned my questions so I can figure out exactly what's blocking you when you're dating, and I'll help you discover what your next best steps are. And I'll help you figure out what your energy leaks are that are leaving you drained and frustrated. So I've really crafted these questions a lot, and I also just have a sixth sense when it comes to it. I can sense an energy block and I can sense an energy leak within just a couple of minutes of talking to women. So I always say, just bring me your hardest dating situation and let me dissect it. And just to put a little bit of proof in the pudding, these are just some quotes that I've gotten from folks, or women mostly, that I've done 30-minute calls with. So this is, oh, I didn't put her name, but this is a client from North Carolina. So she says, I have a job that requires a lot of time, making it hard to find time to date. Veronica helped me to simplify, making dating more fun and natural. And I'd become aware of my own needs, and it made me realize I haven't treated myself well the past few years. I've just focused on working and everyday tasks. It was empowering to do more for myself and to get out of the hustle and bustle. So again, that's Nafisha from North Carolina. And then this is my client Lily from actually Dallas. She says, actually I can relate to this a lot. I usually have no problem attracting men. I struggle with keeping their attention and having it turn into something. Thanks to Veronica, I've learned a lot of ways I've been blocking men from getting in, and I had no idea I was doing it. And then finally, it's my client Laura. I have a tendency to date losers who have no money, motivation, self-control, or life skills and end up taking care of them in some ways. Does this sound familiar? One of the most powerful outcomes I got was that it opened up dialogue between my friends and me about why we settle for the losers, try to change them, and why we let ourselves take responsibility for their feelings. I'll never apologize to a man for just being myself. All right, so that is all I have for you all. Let me hop back over onto the, let's see, onto the, sorry, there's so many windows, I don't know where I am. All right, so so go ahead and pop your questions into the box, and I will also, and I will, sorry, and I will also check my email if you have any questions that you'd like to ask privately. Go to, or send me an email at hello@veronicagrant.com. And again, if you go ahead and schedule yourself into my calendar, I will help you just kind of get over some of your blocks that you're having, and help you figure out the next steps to create new experiences for yourself. And if you schedule yourself by the end of tonight, then I will also give you my meditation that I have to help you just start the process of forgiving and forgiving and creating some space. All right, so all right, I'm not seeing any questions coming through. And I will check my email to see if anything's coming through there. All right, so I don't think there's any questions, so I'll just do a quick recap. So again, the 3 mistakes that I think smart women make are we're judgy, we hang out in our masculine energy more than our feminine energy, and we don't honor our boundaries. And so then the 3 steps that I take my clients through to get back into the dating world if you've been out of dating for a while for whatever reason, or if you have been dating, or you are dating now, but it's just kind of the same thing over and over again. I take clients through creating space, creating presence, and then creating love. So I hope this webinar was helpful for you. This webinar will be up until the end of the weekend, just so if you want to review, listen again, take some more notes, it'll be available for you. And then I know that there will be some people that couldn't make it tonight that'll listen in, so I'll let them know. And so if you have any friends that want to listen in before the end of the weekend, just send them my way and I will get them connected. All right, let me just scroll over one more time. Awesome. Okay, so someone says, I'm not sure how to schedule an appointment on the bottom here. So, okay, that's a good question. So all you do is you just click the red button that says set time zone, and then that will open up my calendar. You just schedule in yourself, and then there's a few questions, just so I can get to know you a little bit before our call. And those questions are super important because that helps me just to zero straight in when we talk. I don't have to do any of the chit chat or back and forth, I already have a really good idea of what's going on for you. And so you answer those questions and then it confirms, and you can add it to your Google Calendar, and you'll also get an email confirmation from the scheduling program as well as me to have our appointment. All right. Cool. Any other questions? That was a good question. And also, so the scheduler is obviously here on the bottom of the page, but you can also go to bit.ly/from dating mess to success, and that will also, it'll just take you to the actual website where my scheduler is. This is just embedded. It's the same thing, so you don't have to do both. So yeah. All right. Well, any more questions? I didn't get any beforehand, I don't think. I know that I had some people tell me about their experiences dating, and I think I probably covered it in a lot of the presentation from today. All right. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and stop the broadcast. Thank you so much. And again, go ahead and schedule yourself in to just click the set time zone or go to the website bit.ly/from dating mess to success, and it'll just go to the webpage. And that is all I have for you. Thank you so much. And I will be in touch with you soon. Bye.